The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome John James Washburn. John, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're from Merrimack, and you're running as a representative for the House of New Hampshire.
Yes.
How's your campaign going so far?
Well, pretty good. I've been doing some sign standouts at the popular spots, Route 11 near Watson Park. I seem to be getting a good reaction for people coming and going in the early morning hours.
You got to stop those people, though, so that they can see you and get to know you a little bit.
Yep.
So I hope that this interview will help you, get elected in Merrimack. We need all the Republicans we can get up there.
Indeed.
And we need to support Governor Sununu in getting some
Absolutely.
of the programs through. What is your biggest issue up there? Is it the water issue? Or?
Well, we have a number of issues in Merrimack. Yeah. There is the water issue, and it is being addressed. I know that some of the candidates in the other party are they're making an issue out of it, but I think the thing to keep in mind here is that for the last 2 years, we've had our Republican representatives from Merrimack who have been addressing the issue. Recently, there was a bill, I believe it was bipartisan, but I think without, among others, Representative Dick Hinch and Chris Christensen and some of the other representatives that I don't know if it would have gotten through. They had a ceremony the other day at the Merrimack Town Hall where Governor Sununu signed it into law. It's HB 1101, and it sets standards. It gives the Department of Environmental Safety, DES, a good deal more of authority. There actually has been a lot going on, and I know that the Merrimack Village District, that's the water authority, they have been negotiating with St. Gobain about putting on filters. So I think progress is being made. I think the important thing at this point is, I think, to keep our Republican representatives and send in the whole slate of 8. There are 8 of us running in Merrimack. We're running as the slate of 8. And, we're looking towards bipartisan overall issues. We're not trying to politicize anything, not trying to, we're not trying to, walk away from the issue or anything like that. But at the same time, too, it is a scientific question. It's interesting. You look at the Merrimack water issue page on Facebook, and you see quite a diversity of opinion. Everything from, there are some people who don't even think there is a problem. We're dealing with, by way of background, I'm not sure I pronounce, maybe I should just say the PFOA, the harmful chemicals. It's only recently been discovered that they are harmful, and this has only been within the last few years. They've discovered the problems at the St. Gobain plant. Basically, the problem was that 100% of Merrimack's groundwater, 100% of Merrimack's water is basically groundwater. In other words, it goes through from precipitation, rain, snow, and ice. And unfortunately, at St. Gobain, there were emissions from the St. Gobain facility that went into the air and then from there, when it rained or snowed, it got into the groundwater through precipitation. And the thing is, the harmful chemicals, the PFOAs and the other chemicals, are actually measured in parts per trillion. And from what I understand, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Safety has said that that can be problematic trying to measure that. They're used to.
It's very fine when you get down to parts per trillion.
Yeah.
But I don't think the manufacturer there that was using the chemicals knew how volatile it was, how it got out into the atmosphere so completely. They didn't have any containment for that.
Well, that's the thing, now we know, and, that's another aspect of this, too, like the, getting back to the Merrimack water issue Facebook page, it's interesting reading. There are a number of lively exchanges on there, and there are people who think that somehow there shouldn't be any of these chemicals in the water, which I don't think is really possible. And other people who say we have to, it's still being kind of debated among some people that whether or not there even is a problem. I mean, I'm not going to walk away from it. I do think there is a problem. I'm not going to say there probably isn't. There isn't a problem, but I think we need a calm, rational response. We can't look to any type of...
well, you're not the only location in the United States that uses that chemical.
That's it.
Yeah, and some of these studies take an awful long time before they can determine any kind of level that they would recommend as a minimum level. That's a big problem. I know I work with pharmaceuticals, and sometimes pharmaceuticals can be harmful either to the manufacturer or to the people around it, just because of the chemistry that goes along with the molecules that are put into the pharmaceutical. But it is hard to do, and it takes a while, and it's just going to have to be carefully monitored, I guess. That's what I mean, do they have a schedule, or are they people stop using well water there, and you're going through your city water, or whatever you want to call it, town water?
Yeah. Well, they are putting filters on the facilities. Unfortunately, the problem is a lot of the people in the area have wells, and that's another issue in terms of the getting the appropriate filters. I know there can be an issue with these filters too. I know there's some issue about some people like reverse osmosis filters, but from what I understand, the problem with that is it can be effective, but at the same time it can increase the salinity of the water.
Well, it's just a chemical change, essentially. And you leave, it's just like making the hard water soft. The same problem, you can get too much salt in there.
That's it. And I know that there is a debate about whether or not St. Gobain should, pay for the filters that in people's private wells and even in their homes. I think but I think the new bill, it does provide a amount of oversight. I know there is a public meeting coming up in Merrimack on the topic, and but I think we have to maintain the present leadership in the House and in the governor's office to have a good follow through on this. I don't think anything would be accomplished by applying a purely partisan view of this. That interestingly enough, in the other party too, apparently not all of the candidates are that concerned about the water issue either. So, but that being said too, I know there are, and the thing to consider here too is I think we do have a number of issues that affect everyone in Merrimack and throughout the state of New Hampshire. I know we've made some progress in the last couple of years with a Republican governor and a Republican House and Senate, and I think we have to continue that. I think I know the economy has gotten better. I've actually seen it myself in the number of people who, basically going back to work, that their situation is improving. I know too, I think we have to hold the line on taxes in New Hampshire. I think, that.
Well, that's the first thing you're going to do if you get elected, is work on the budget. That's the big problem out there when we go in the first session after the election, is that long budget. And it sounds like, though, we're heading in the right direction. I don't know if you followed it very closely. There is a surplus already just in a couple months of the new fiscal year. So it looks like the economy is helping us out, maybe solving some of our problems that have existed for a while. It might allow us to catch up on some of the things that we've allowed to fall behind on.
That's true. Yeah, that is. That's the thing. I think, as the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is benefiting everybody, and I know too with the budget. It's funny too. I heard an expression a while ago about the two views of government budgeting. Mm-hmm. There's the Democratic view about, well, how much are we going to spend and how much do we want to spend, and then we'll just figure out how to get the money later.
That's right.
And then there's the Republican view, well, how much can we realistically spend on these things?
Yeah, and how is it justified, too? I think they're looking a lot more closely at how you justify it, how you're going to measure your success. And, if you don't hit some of your objectives, change the law a little bit, which is, I think, an appropriate way. It's the way businesses operate. If they have a budget and it's not working out, they make changes, either with their salespeople or with the manufacturing, or whatever, but whatever is appropriate. So I think that the fact that we've extended the cutting of business tax for a couple more years is significant, but we have to maintain getting a surplus at the same time.
That's it. Yeah. I know with the surplus recently, I know some of that actually did go back to the town of Merrimack. Mm-hmm. And that was, the people of Merrimack greatly appreciated that.
Well, I saw that in Nashua. They're paving a lot more roads.
Yep.
And
that's noticeable.
Thank goodness. I had a couple of blowouts in those potholes that form in the winter in any town around in New Hampshire. Yeah. And maybe I won't have to worry about that anymore. That gets expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I understand, too, you have plans, they're talking about widening Route 3, the turnpike, through from Nashua all the way up to Manchester, which is going to be a big project. It won't start for a couple of years, but the planning session was very, very informative. Your people there in Merrimack are looking for something with no tolls, is that it?
Well, tolls have always
Right.
been an issue in Merrimack. That I know they did get some relief by taking out a toll booth a while ago. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a certain amount of frustration with the people of Merrimack because they feel that they've been put it bluntly, abandoned by a number of people in the government. I know there was a case where back in the days when they had the tokens.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a governor who visited Merrimack, so somebody framed a token in a frame, and they put a token of appreciation for the visit. But I think we have, once again, we've made some progress on that. But I think, too, I think we have to, maybe look at, is there a more equitable way to do it? I know the trouble is, and anybody who ends up with a toll booth is not going to like it.
Well, it's a significant amount of money. The turnpike is doing well by it, and the rest of the state has a problem because the tax that on gas isn't bringing in enough money because people are getting either better mileage or using electric cars or something like that. So the income has actually gone down with people. Maybe if we get more tourists in there and use their money. But it is hard when you're you're used to a certain income to make long-range planning work. And that's where I think that $30 million extra that we used from the surplus in the last fiscal year, for using it for roads and bridges was very, very useful, because it really got some of the things that were overdue. I'm working from the Public Works Department, and we're the ones that see a lot of that planning and everything. So I think that I can't wait, because I think you probably have had experiences going at rush hour on Turnpike.
Oh, yeah.
Or not going.
That's, yeah. Well, when I got on there today, I forgot it was the Friday afternoon before a holiday weekend, and when you get to those, you get on there and it's backed up, and then you realize it's because of the merge.
Right.
So
from 3 lanes to 2.
Yeah.
Either way you're going, you're going to get caught.
That's it.
That doubles the time to go from here to Manchester. I think you know that too.
Yep.
But we'll see what happens if they add another lane, and whether that takes care of it for a while. I think the estimate is only going to take care of it for another 5 years before it goes to 4 lanes instead of 3.
Yep.
But I think they've already put that into the plan. I think the bridges the newer bridges are big enough, and the ones they're going to be putting in, because they'll have 2 bridges in Merrimack that they have to take down and redo. They'll be taking that into effect. But what about anything in education or into health issues, healthcare issues in the state that's of importance for your constituents?
Oh yes, yeah. There's well, I know there's an issue too about school choice. And I know I am in favor of expanding as many options as possible for parents in terms of charter schools, homeschooling, vouchers. Basically, I think the one-size-fits-all approach has not worked. I've seen it over the course of my life, from starting and going through the public school systems, and then dealing with people and talking to parents who have had a sense of frustration that the school system isn't really addressing their children's needs.
They're trying to make it too standardized in my mind. I don't know how you feel about that. But it sounds like you're interested in giving an education to the best thing that is for each student. You may be having to separate them in a way, because some students take to it differently than others.
That's it. Everybody's a little different. I mean, something that scares me is the way they are so quick to characterize a student as having attention deficit disorder, or just because maybe they caught them daydreaming in class or something like that. And I think there has to be just a better approach, rather than the like, for example, I know that the Common Core issues here too. You don't quite hear so much about that now, but I think it's still out there.
It's still out there with some national stuff that they're trying to clean up, but I think some of it, well, I don't know about your school district, but some of them are really allowing the teachers to teach. But I think the biggest problem they have is they still try to group people and try to get different learners in class together. And rather than trying to segregate them into the teaching methodology that works best for that group of kids, And I don't know whether it's a matter of trying to make everybody feel equal, but everybody's not equal. And as soon as you get out of school, you realize that. I mean, people have different talents. A music teacher's not the same as somebody that's in physics Well, I shouldn't say that because that's true. A lot of physicists are very music oriented because it's a system.
Yeah, they say that
But
the two universal languages, music and physics. But
yeah, that was a bad example. But there were other things like that, and I think you know what I mean. That so, just like they're saying that some people like to work with their hands rather than with their brain. Or it's not that they don't use their brain; it's just that they want to do something with their hands, and they might be the best auto mechanic in the world.
Well, I remember going to high school back in the giving up my age here, but the early 1970s, and there was a tremendous influence and assumption that everybody was just supposed to go to college.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody really wants to or is necessarily suited for college. They might be better in a vocational school or in some other area of endeavor rather than to put 4 years in. Now too, it's gotten so cost prohibitive. Fortunately, I managed to. I went to college. I've got 2 college degrees and 2 law degrees, and I managed. It was before things got really out of hand. Now some of these schools, I don't know how in the world
what they charge. Yeah.
Get away with some of these tuitions that they charge now. But I managed to get through school when it was still somewhat affordable. I was usually had a job. I helped with the financing. My mother helped me quite a bit. But nowadays, though, these kids, they have to go seriously into debt.
Yeah.
And to get a degree that, might not be, to be blunt, not that good and not that marketable. And I think maybe we need a system that's a little bit more open and encouraging of people working in different areas. I know, but that's the thing. I know.
Do you have any charter schools in Merrimack? I know there's 3 in Nashua.
Yeah.
That might be enough, and there's more in Manchester. But I don't know whether Merrimack.
That I am aware of. Okay. That's a good question. I'll find out.
Yeah.
And,
but there are 3 different types of charter schools in Nashua. So that's 3 different areas. I mean, one operates on very scientific things. They specialize in the sciences and math and design, and another one operates like a commercial
I'm familiar with that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have their own currency.
That's right.
Yeah.
They learned, that they may be making better people for voters in there because they'll be understanding all the mechanisms of how society works more than the scientist does. The scientist needs to understand a lot about science. So I think that's one of the things that we ought to look for, and we're expanding that up in the legislature, so you might get involved in that. It's going to be an interesting time, though, coming up.
Oh, yeah. It will be.
I think it's, and we have to learn how to get along with each other, too. We can't have some of these things that's going on in the federal government right now.
Yeah, this is, that's gotten out of hand. I'll just be glad when the current issue is over. I'm hoping it's coming to an end soon. This is, I don't want to adopt the simplistic attitude that the whole matter is so unpleasant I'd rather not talk about it, but it has gotten to such extremes, and I think unnecessary extremes too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, we won't get into that because that will take a couple hours more to talk about.
Easily, yeah.
But we'll be looking at the different things, and maybe after the election we can come back and see how you like it.
Oh.
Okay? All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you very much, John.
Yep.
And good luck on your election.
Thank you.
Okay.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.